All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, fellow Pandemonium travelers, this is Seattle Pandemonium Shutdown day 380 by my count. My count was off yesterday. I think I said 378 in the video, but it was actually day 379. So today is day 380, I think. So what's going on? What's going down? We've got, well, here's what we've got. We've got Ahmad al-Issa. We don't like to promote the names of mass shooters, but it has become relevant given the state of blue check Twitter, where apparently it's like a symbol of being a moron. So we had the shooting in Atlanta last week, and this goofy white guy decides he is tired of being tempted by the temptresses, I guess, in the massage parlors. So he decided to go shoot a bunch of them. Now, no one wants to talk about like the human trafficking of like East Asian women, and that being why there were a lot of East Asian women that were killed. But that's certainly a factor. And he claimed it wasn't about race, it was about his own lack of self-control or whatever. So that brings us a week later, another mass shooting. Even I thought the picture of the guy, there's a guy in his underwear, maybe the cops stripped him of his clothes to make sure he didn't have any more weapons. I don't know why he was in his drawers. But he looked like he got shot in the foot or the leg or something. And it turns out that he is a Syrian Muslim, I guess hates Donald Trump, and was kind of pro-ISIS, I guess. So, we now get narrative meltdown. So, we went from, and there are screen grabs of all these blue check liberal Twitter accounts, journalists, heads of newspapers, editorial boards, etc., all saying another white male or a white supremacist terrorist attack, and we need, this needs to stop. And then it's like, oh, it turns out that this guy might just be crazy. There's also that. But he also did post like extremist content. So there's just kind of the narrative has become tangled, right? Where it's not necessarily obvious. Well, obviously, I mean, it's not white supremacist right-wing MAGA terrorists. Like, it's not QAnon guys, okay? Now, the backspin that some of these people are doing is just like, well, it's white supremacy that made him feel alienated, so this is still white supremacy's fault. Okay, guys, and now it's switched to we need gun control. Not we need white supremacist control. Now we need gun control. Okay, we've been over this like so many times. It's like I'm tired of going over why you can't simply just like ban some weapons. Like well, these scary black rifles. Like it's just not. Ooh, is that a Ferrari? Lamborghini? Why you can't simply ban some weapons, but never mind like 2A talk. This is about narrative and media and everything. A lot of these, it's fascinating. The blue check or white check, depending on how you look at the symbols, and if you're looking at it on mobile or night mode, I think they change colors. This narrative of the white supremacist terror, white supremacy, it's the most dangerous thing in America. And then, oh yeah, other people commit crimes and stuff too, and it's just, like, it's not that hard to wait a day. Again, the 24-hour rule, especially with things like shootings. It's like a mass shooting involving who, where. If it's in the south side of Chicago, the story disappears. People are already joking that this story is going to disappear because it's not a white guy. It's not a white guy with a manifesto, It's probably true. It probably will happen. I don't know. But, yeah, we've got constant noise, you know? Like, it's just constant. It's constantly, whatever the narrative they've chosen is, becomes this constant drumbeat, and whether it makes sense or not, like whether it actually is coherent or not. And it's hard to, well, it's easy to see all of the, call it, coverage of, you know, the fear-mongering, the white supremacy from especially like verified accounts on Twitter, for example. These are journos. These are people who work for news outlets. They're the people who know, right? And then they repeat this like fear-mongering stuff all the time, and so then, yeah, I get why people would believe it. But take these narratives and then like look at what's happening now, like the southern border situation. Like, Biden screwed up the southern border, and now we do have kids in cages. I mean, it's the same. I'd levy the same criticism that I had during the Trump administration, which is not exactly much. I mean, it's like people show up, they say this is their kid. You don't know if that's true or not. Sometimes kids just show up on their own. You can't just have children just wandering around with no supervision. That would lead to all kinds of awful things if you just use your imagination for like 30 seconds. So what do they have to do? They have to give them NASA space blankets and put them in a pen. Because at some point, no matter how big the facility you're putting them in, will no longer be big enough, at which point it becomes basically like a cage, like a pen, like a holding area, if you will. So, I mean, that's just a reality of the human trafficking and the human mass migration that's happening to the southern border. Why did it spike so much? It's because Biden was soft on the border, and people are coming up saying, yeah, we think we'll get in easier now that Biden is president. And that's part of their strategy. They're going to be like, well, we're just swamped. Amnesty, which is going to trigger an even bigger mass migration of human beings that will be a complete humanitarian disaster if that's what they do, which I could see them doing the move. Like, oh, well, we can't just turn all these people away. We have to do the American thing is just let them all in. Yeah, that's a terrible idea. But, I mean, if Biden's even actually the president anymore, because his brain is pudding, I don't know. But yeah, everyone's stupid about mass shootings and gun violence, and we have to, like I said, I'm tired of going over fundamentals of like gun control and like what the Second Amendment means and like why you can't just ban guns. Like, they're like, well, they did it in Australia. It's like, yeah, it takes years, and the people were all kind of on board with it, and they didn't have a gun control, a gun rights protection in their, constitution. They're still crown territory. So it's, if you want to reform it, if you want to reform gun laws in America, you're going to have to amend the Second Amendment. Otherwise, states are just going to selectively enforce, or rather not enforce, whatever laws the feds pass, and there's not necessarily anything they can do about it because federalism. So we have a similar phenomenon here in Washington, where we have feel-good liberal idiots who think, oh, we'll just ban and we'll put a tax on ammunition, like here in King County, or like here in Seattle city limits, I think it was. We'll put a tax on ammunition, and that will stop people from buying guns and shooting each other. Like, if people want to shoot each other. By the way, I offer grand moral proclamations like people shouldn't shoot one another. I know, it's pretty groundbreaking stuff. It could be big. It could be big if we tried it out. But the end is nigh, or give me free stuff. I'd actually appreciate an end is nigh sign. Your donation cleaning up the Seattle area. No, it doesn't. It contributes to you hanging out here and leaving garbage everywhere. Anyways, oh, you're crooked. No, they passed like magazine. I think they passed. Oh no, it was the FFL transfer requirement. So anytime you were to give somebody else one of your guns, you would have to pass an FFL background check and pay a transfer fee. And I think this was worded in such a way that it was even like, at a gun range, I hand you my gun so you can shoot it, and then you hand it back to me so I can shoot it, that you would have to do an FFL transfer to do that, which is insanity. But even if it was just, I'm going to let you borrow this long rifle or whatever, like, that is essentially there's a certain point where that becomes a registration, and registration precedes confiscation is the thing that's always said. And what's happened in Washington state is basically sheriff's departments and stuff all over the state are just like, we're not enforcing this because it's basically unenforceable, or you would only get selective enforcement and it would be done to discriminate against people basically for whatever reason, right? So this law feels good, but is actually completely useless legislation that's just garbage, waste of time. So similar nonsense would come down from the federal government in the form of an executive order, and then it would have to be enforced at the state level by the feds, which violates various state constitutions, I'm sure, and would have to be enforced by the state governments after we've allegedly, or we were going to, maybe we still are going to defund the police. So you guys, again, you want more gun control, but with less money for the police. After a year, or after all last summer of violent rioting and murder, I'm sorry, but your messaging is incoherent. You are not serious people deserving of serious consideration. And I think that we should just ignore you for the most part. I mean, I would love to simply ignore you, but you're all loud and dumb. So we have to constantly, again, like going over fundamentals of gun stuff, like what's the difference between an AR-15 and a handgun and a shotgun, and how many types of crimes are committed with different types of weapons, and blah, 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 blah. And we go over the same information over and over and over again. It's really something. I've never seen people sort of so committed to ignorance, I guess, just committed to not learning what they need to learn in order to understand this issue, because it's more complicated than you think it is. Like every issue we still talk about endlessly, it's more complicated than you think it is. And I know that because if it was not complicated, we would have solved it already and we wouldn't be having this conversation. Much like shoes and shoe tying, okay? There's not a government department of official shoe tying, knots that are legal and knots that are not legal. There's not certain types of footwear that are legal or not. It's just get shoes and wear them. It's for your own good, right? That's the level of regulation I would like for things like guns to have. I would like for everyone to have just handled their gun situation, whatever it is, no guns, a million guns, I don't care. Just handle your situation and make it as ubiquitous and seamless as shoe tying. And we don't need some bloated federal government to come in and shoot your dog trying to regulate your guns that you're constitutionally allowed to have. All right, that's enough from me for one day. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.